Brad Savage. I'm the new program director and afternoon host for the Summit. And I just got here. I just started in October after 9 years in Charlottesville, Virginia at WCNR The Corner. However, I'm a Midwesterner, grew up in the Twin Cities, grew up in Minnesota area, so I know what I'm getting into as far as winter around here. I just have always been interested in radio from a very young age. I just listened intently, learned music, made playlists, made lists of the songs that each station was playing, and never looked back. As early as third grade, I can remember saying, I want to be in radio, I want to be on the air, and I want to pick the songs. So that's just always what I've wanted to do. I was basically ready to do non-commercial radio and work at a public station, a station that is mission-driven and listener-supported and has a lot of creative programming freedom to play new music and independent music and local music and cool old music that isn't heard everywhere else. I was kind of ready to make that jump into the public radio world. I'd say the Summit is different because we can really play a lot of new artists and break a lot of new artists, expose them to new listeners when they're brand new. And the Summit has a terrific history of doing that, of going early on playing new songs in rotation, songs that eventually cross over and become big stars at top 40 format. So I want to keep doing more of that. The Summit in Akron and Canton has a couple of decades of terrific history already, and more of the same there. Plus, we're still relatively new, only a few years in Youngstown and Western Pennsylvania and the Mahoning Valley and everything. So I think at one time we're going to keep enhancing what we do for the longtime listeners in Akron area, but also really endear ourselves to Youngstown and just make the station indispensable to those listeners too, and make them really love the music and finding new artists or finding cool old music on the station. The Summit works differently than commercial radio stations in that we ask listeners to actually make a financial contribution to the station to help us keep going and to support what we do. But it kind of becomes a values statement for our listeners. Like, I like the Summit, I like finding out about new music or what's happening or touring artists or Studio C sessions. So at that point, we ask them to make a small contribution on a monthly basis or once a year or whatever it is, and that powers the radio station. And I think that a lot of people, at least Summit listeners, really like that idea of being able to say, I heard about this on the Summit and they introduced me to this artist, and that's important to me. There's a lot of talk in the radio industry of the word curator, kind of a tour guide. So there may be 200, literally, there may be 200 new artists or new albums coming out every month. So I feel like our job at the radio station is to sift through that and find the really interesting stuff and play it. And hopefully our listeners will use the Summit kind of like that friend that has a great record collection, and helps them discover the next big thing. We kind of do the heavy lifting and find the best of it and put it on the air. And that's a pretty cool thing. That's a pretty useful slot in the community for people who are busy and don't have time to go through 200 new releases a month. So hopefully our Summit listeners will find that as kind of like a point of philosophical buy-in to the mission of the station, and then support by becoming a member.